What is up? We're back. NFL Week 3 quarterback breakdown. I'm really excited to talk about some quarterbacks today. A lot to get into. There's some really good games this week just to watch, and some really going to be high scoring games. So we got to break down all of that stuff. Some interesting matchups, some interesting injuries that we're going to break down as well. So yeah, I'm here to talk about all of that with you guys. Before I do, if you're new to this channel, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, turn on the notification bell. All those things really help me grow. I've had a ton of growth throughout NFL, NBA, and NASCAR season. I just want to continue growing. Make sure to go check out that Thursday Night Football video if you haven't already. If you're watching this before Thursday Night Football, obviously. If you're watching this on Friday or Saturday, it's probably going to be useless for you, so maybe not at that point, but go check out all that other stuff. More videos coming out today. Running backs I'll be recording shortly after I record the quarterback ones, and receivers and tight ends coming out Thursday. And then Friday we have top cash plays and top stack plays. And then Saturday will be my injury video. So be sure to check out all of that stuff coming up for you as well. If you want to get more of my content, you can always subscribe to my Patreon for only $10 a month. You are going to get basically articles for every single position every single week, along with rankings in GPPs and cash for all those. You're going to get all of my injury notes so that you know on Sunday when players get ruled in or ruled out, you're going to know what and what not to do. You are also going to get articles for every single showdown slate. Well, the main ones, the Thursday night, Monday night, and Sunday night showdown slate. And then along with also you're going to get all my top stacks of the week, or I'm going to rank all the stacks for you guys. So be sure to go over there and check that out. And then if you want to follow me on social media, Twitter's at DFSNateLane, Instagram's at NateLane_. Just love talking about sports and football a lot more recently, honestly. Basketball's coming towards an end, so it's probably more going to be just football, occasionally NASCAR on the weekends. But yeah, that's really about it. So be sure to go over there and check it out. Put the links to all that stuff down below. But let's get into these quarterbacks, where we are going to start out with Baker Mayfield, $5,700 against Washington. Baker Mayfield actually looked pretty good against Cincinnati the other day. I've been a huge Baker guy ever since he's been in college, so really want to see him succeed. So, I mean, just I was happy to see that happen. This week they're going up against the Washington football team, which is probably a bottom 5 team in the NFL, so they shouldn't have a problem beating them, and Baker looks to be in a good spot. The starting or offense versus defensive line matchup is going to be positive for Cleveland. Cleveland has a much improved offensive line, and yet a defensive line for Washington looks pretty solid to start the season, but I don't think it has a problem going up against this Cleveland, or I don't think they'll have a problem going up against it. In the receiving core, we have Odell at the wide receiver 1. Kadero Hodge has been lining up as wide receiver 2, and then Jarvis Landry in the slot. Now, Kadero Hodge really hasn't been getting a ton of usage as the wide receiver 2, but he is there. Jarvis Landry getting a lot of usage in the slot along with Odell Beckham. They're going to be going up against Fabian Moreau, Ronald Darby, and Jimmy Moreland, who grade out terribly, but they've been looking pretty solid this year. But I don't think that these guys are really going to have a problem with them. Overall, the wide receivers grade out very positively. We have Austin Hooper at the tight end going up against Kevin Pierre-Louis, John Bostic, and Sean Dion Hamilton. This is going to be a slightly negative matchup. The Washington linebackers are actually pretty solid, and Austin Hooper is just really not as good as people think. He was just a product of that Atlanta offense. So, I mean, I think he's fine, but just he's not really as big of a piece to this offense as I think people expected. And you got Landon Collins and Troy Apke as the safeties. That's going to grade out slightly negatively for Baker as well. Overall, we have a pretty good positive matchup for Baker Mayfield. This game is one of the lower total games, a 43.5 game total, and they are favored at home, so probably not as much of a pass script game. I don't expect a ton of passing from Baker because they should probably be playing from ahead. So probably not someone that I want to go for stack for GPPs, but I mean a solid cash play because he's just in a good matchup and he's cheap, so I don't hate playing him in cash at all. But as a GPP option and a stack, probably some other places I'd just rather go to. Deshaun Watson is going to be coming in at 6,500 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchups, it's going to grade out slightly negative for the Houston Texans. We all know their offensive line kind of sucks, and Pittsburgh's defensive line is very good. Honestly, Pittsburgh's defense is someone I'm looking at in tournaments this week for sure. And if you haven't been fantasy football playing them, I mean, it's just they're the matchup on offense versus defense line is huge, and Deshaun Watson is someone that drops back a lot. So definitely that defense is definitely someone I would look at. But this is a quarterback video. Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb are your wide receivers. They're going to be matching up against Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden, and Mike Hilton, and they are going to grade out negatively as well. I mean, that's a very good cornerback group. We all know Joe Hayden, what he's been for his whole career. Steven Nelson's an emerging corner in the league, and then Mike Hilton's a good slot corner. So all of them very tough matches for those wide receivers. Jordan Akins is a tight end, but Jordan Akins really isn't utilized that much, but he doesn't do anything against Vince Williams or Devin Bush. Those two linebackers very, very good. And then we got Terrell Evans and Minka Fitzpatrick are our two safeties. They grade out a little positively for Deshaun, but overall Deshaun Watson grades out negatively. And I think he has the worst overall grade matchup on the slate, yeah. However, I will say this is a game where they are going to be playing from behind. It's not really that high of a scoring game. I was kind of expecting the line on this one to be a little bit higher, but I guess the Texans really haven't scored a lot this year, so that makes sense. They're on the road. They're not favored. I don't think this is the spot I really want to get to Deshaun Watson anywhere. I think it's just such a tough matchup. I don't usually like playing anybody against Pittsburgh in the first place, so I don't think Deshaun's someone I really have too much interest in. Up next, we're going to go for Josh Allen, who's looked like an MVP candidate to start the season. Another guy I've been a huge fan of for a long time is Josh Allen, so I'm happy to see him finally, it looks like, putting together something very, very special. He's just kind of slightly improved every single year, and I like to see that from quarterbacks, so I just like his game. I think he has a ton of upside, and I want to see him hit that, and so far he's hit it. However, it has been against the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets, so we will see what happens against the Rams, a little bit of a tougher matchup this week. We go look at the offensive versus defensive line. It's going to grade out slightly negatively. I mean, we know the defensive line for the Rams is good. We have Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Michael Brockers, Samson Ebukam. They're all very, very good defensive linemen. So, I mean, it's a slightly tough matchup, but nothing that really too worrisome. I mean, it's not even a percentage negative matchup. So it's just very, very slight. Pretty much an even matchup, honestly, is more along the lines of it. Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley are the three receivers for Buffalo. Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, and Troy Hill are the corners. I mean, we all know how good Jalen Ramsey is. It's going to grade out slightly positive, though, overall, because the other two corners really aren't that good. So the receiver is still going to grade out slightly positively. We have Dawson Knox as the tight end, who really isn't utilized that much. And, I mean, he should be utilized, I think, a little more maybe this week because the linebackers in LA suck. Kenny Young, Micah Kaiser, Jordan Fuller are bad. I mean, grades out is a very positive matchup for Dawson Knox. But he's not someone that's going to probably get a lot of utilization, so probably not someone to put too much weight into. And then Taylor Rapp and John Johnson, the third, are the safeties, and that's going to be a pretty positive matchup for Josh Allen as well. Overall, he grades out as a pretty positive matchup. Not one of the highest, but he is a positive matchup. This is a game where they are at home. The total is 47.5, one of the highest on the slate, so I do like that. There's going to be a lot of scoring. I mean, it's the Rams, and the Bills have looked like they've been scoring a lot as well recently. They are projected to be playing from ahead, but I think this game, like last week, remember when we had the Philadelphia Rams game? Like, I think the Rams, everyone's talking so much about Dallas and Seattle and Detroit, about teams who are just going to be playing in like these shootouts all year, high-scoring offenses. Well, I think LA Rams are one of those teams too. I mean, we've seen them the Dallas game week 1, but I mean, it was against Dallas. Everyone's just giving the credit to Dallas. But like the Rams defense really isn't that good. It's Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, and then a bunch of and maybe you can include Taylor Rapp if you want. And like it's just not a lot of other really, really good players on that defense. They're all really just and they score the ball a lot. So this is a team that could be in shootouts a lot. So the Bills-Rams game is definitely something I want to maybe look at stacking, especially on the Bills side, because the Rams do have a much tougher defensive matchup in the Bills, but against the Bills. But I don't mind stacking Josh Allen at all in tournaments. He's too expensive to go to cash. $6,900 Josh Allen's expensive. So they are favored, but I think this game's gonna be closer than I think a lot of people think. I think it's gonna be a lot like the Philadelphia LA Rams game last week, where I was like, this is a game that could be high scoring. Jared Goff's the way to go in this game, and I mean, I didn't really want Carson Wentz as much, but this time I do like Josh Allen a lot, so definitely someone I want to look into. Up next, we have Sam Darnold at $5,000 going against the Colts. Jets, man, they suck. They're just not good at football. Yeah, Darnold feels like he's just set up to fail in that offense, honestly. I hate that he's stuck there. I think he's a fine quarterback. He's nothing special, but he's just set up to fail in New York. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line, it's going to be actually a slightly positive matchup for the Jets. I mean, their offensive line, surprisingly, isn't horrible. But it's when you go look at the receivers and the running backs for the Jets where it's just like, oh my God. Jamison Crowder, I still don't have in right now. If he misses again, this is what the receiver core will look like. Rashad Perryman, Chris Hogan, Braxton Berrios. I don't have any word on Jamison Crowder today. It's only Wednesday. We'll wait for the Thursday receiver reports to come out. Obviously, if Crowder comes back, that's a big upgrade for Sam Darnold as a weapon. So definitely to keep an eye on there. The corners, Rockison, Xavier Rhodes, Kenny Moore. Rockison missed last week, but it was like, I think he had like a stomach ache or something, so he'll be back. It's nothing like the end of the world there. They're going to grade out slightly positively against those corners because Xavier Rhodes is just not good. Those corners for Colts aren't really that good. Their defense is solid, but it's nothing like too special. You have Chris Herndon as a tight end, and then going up against Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker, Bobby Okereke. That's going to be a terribly negative matchup for Chris Herndon. Those are three very, very good coverage linebackers. Chris Herndon was a guy that was high on coming into the season. That's fantasy tight end, but he has drawn like three brutal matchups to start the season, man. I just don't know how much I really want to go back there. Malik Hooker, Kerry Willis. I think Malik Hooker actually tore his Achilles, so he's gone. It'll be someone else coming in for Malik Hooker. It's still gonna be a positive matchup. A negative matchup overall for Darnold. And Darnold I just don't really want to play him at all. Honestly, he's just not someone I really want to go to ever at this point in the season. He's just set up to fail. No good receivers. Pretty much every team they're gonna be playing from behind, which is usually good for quarterbacks, but they're going to be playing from really behind against good defenses that are just way better than his offensive weapons. So I don't really want to go there at all. They're on the road too. If they were at home, maybe, but on the road, not going to go to Sam Darnold anywhere this weekend. Cam Newton at $6,700, playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. Cam's looked really good. I'm from Carolina, so watched Cam Newton play his whole career, and this is one of the best he's looked ever, outside the MVP year and then like maybe one or two other years. This is the best I've seen Cam look in a while, so happy to see that he's succeeding. Going against a pretty soft matchup in the Raiders this week at 6,700. We know what Cam brings. He brings you to rushing upside. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchup, it's going to be a really positive matchup for Cam Newton. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league, period, and the Raiders have one of the worst defensive lines in the league, period. So, Cam Newton's offensive versus defense line matchup's great. The receivers Cam has is N'Keal Harry, Damiere Byrd, and Julian Edelman in the slot, and they're going to be going up against Trayvon Mullen, rookie Damian Arnett, and LaMarcus Joyner. None of those guys have looked good at all this year. A very positive matchup for the wide receivers for New England. Ryan Izzo's the tight end, but Ryan Izzo gets one target in a game, so I'm not even going to talk about him. Then we go to the safeties. You have Jonathan Abram and Eric Harris. They've looked pretty solid this year. Nothing too special, but solid safeties. And then overall, it's going to be a positive match for Cam. One of the higher positives on the slate. The thing with Cam Newton is you don't really have to stack him. He's someone that you can play in tournaments just by himself because he brings so much rushing upside. Already 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. He brings you that upside. You don't need to stack him. If you were going to stack him, I'd probably only do it with one player, and it would either be Edelman or Harry. No one else on that team I want to stack him with. Even if James White comes back, probably not. So he's in a good matchup. He is at home. He's favored. They're favored by 7 points, but we saw the Raiders were 6-point underdogs in Monday night against New Orleans, and they won. So the Raiders don't look as bad as people think they're going to be. Their offense is really, really good. Defense is still in a work in progress, but I do like their offense. So this game could be a little bit closer than people think. And Cam Newton, I think he's a fine play in tournaments. Too expensive for me to go there in cash, but definitely a tournament option. Jeff Driscoll, I'm not. They play Tampa this week. I just don't have faith in Jeff Driscoll. If they were playing a softer matchup, maybe, but I just don't want to go there, especially in tournaments. He doesn't bring you an upside to win you a GPP whatsoever. In cash, you can, if you really want to get there, but in all honesty, I'd rather pay $100 less for Haskins than I would Jeff Driscoll, because this is a tough matchup. We can go look at it. We look at the offensive versus defensive line. It's going to be a negative matchup for the Broncos offensive line. Courtland Sutton's out for the season for Denver, so his 3 receivers are 2 rookies and Tim Patrick. I think Jerry Jeudy's very, very good. I think he's a very, very good receiver, but he's still a rookie. It's only going to be his 3rd game. His receivers aren't good. His offensive line matchup isn't good. They're going up against Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and Sean Murphy bunting. Very good corners. It's going to be a negative matchup there. Noah Fant's good, but he's going up against Levante David, one of, if not the best linebacker in the league right now. Terrible matchup there. Antoine Winfield and Jordan Whitehead are the safeties. It's just going to overall be a negative matchup for Jeff Driscoll. They're not favored, which is good for a quarterback, but they're at home. But it's just a tough matchup. It's not going to be low. It's one of the lowest scoring games on the slate. It's the second lowest total, tied for the second lowest total on the slate. So I just don't want to get there at all anywhere. I just don't think he's really. I think he's thin. If you want to in cash, you can, but I just wouldn't. I don't think you need to in cash this week. When I make my cash video on Friday, you're not going to need to punt that deep at quarterback this week. So Driscoll is probably off the table. Ryan Tannehill, $5,900, going against the terrible, terrible Minnesota Vikings. That team's so bad. They look they're a mess. We look at the offensive versus defensive line. It's going to be one of the most positive offensive line matchups on the entire slate for Minnesota or for Tennessee. Right now, A.J. Brown's questionable. We'll see if he comes back. I don't think he's playing this week. I think he'll sit out one more week, especially if they're playing Minnesota, who they shouldn't have a problem beating. So right now, I have the wide receiver 1, Corey Davis, then Khalif Raymond, Adam Humphries. Really, Davis and Humphries are only 2 receivers getting utilized in the offense. They'll be going up against the worst cornerback group in the entire league. Jeff Gladney, Holton Hill, and Mike Hughes. And we'll see if Cameron Dantzler's back. That moves Gladney back out of the starting lineup, which is honestly better. So Gladney's a pretty solid rookie, I think. When we go look at the overall matchup, I mean, when you have Corey Davis and Adam Humphries grading out better than your corners, that's not good. So, they have a great matchup there. Jonnu Smith's the tight end. Anthony Barr's out for the season for Minnesota, so that's a huge hit to their defense. So Eric Kendrick, Eric Wilson, and Troy Dye are the tight ends. It's going to be a negative matchup for Jonnu Smith there, but Jonnu Smith's getting a ton of targets. That's going to be one of the guys who's going to be utilized in the offense more. Anthony Harris, Harrison Smith are the safeties. Overall, we have a pretty positive matchup for Tannehill, but nothing like substantially good. We all know this is going to be a team where I just don't think this is a game where, you just stack Tannehill. He's fine. If you want to get there in cash, he's fine for sure. The matchup's pretty good. The total's pretty good at 47.5. They're favored on the road, so I don't think it's going to be they're only 2-point favorites, so that's good. It's just I don't know. I don't ever really want to stack Ryan Tannehill in tournaments, especially when there's no A.J. Brown. I just like getting more pieces like a Derrick Henry of this game, or a Corey Davis, or even an Adam Humphries or a Jonnu Smith of this game, rather than going to Ryan Tannehill. So probably not someone I have too much attention on, but he's definitely in a good spot. If you want to play him in cash, he's fine. Russell Wilson. All right, here's where we start getting into these games where it's just insane totals. $7,300, Russell Wilson, who's probably the MVP front runner through 2 weeks of the season. He's just been ridiculously efficient and already has 9 passing touchdowns, or 8 or 9. I think it was 9 passing touchdowns on the season. He's just been absolutely insane. He comes in at $7,300 going up against Dallas, who is pretty much just going to be in shootouts all year long. We go look at the offensive versus defensive line. It's going to be a positive matchup for Russell Wilson's offensive line. We know his receivers are great. DK Metcalf, Moore's fine, and then Tyler Lockett, just elite wide receivers. And they're going to be going up against rookie Trayvon Diggs, Chidobe Awuzie, and Jordan Lewis in the slot. Trayvon Diggs has actually looked pretty solid, but he's still a rookie going up against DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf, if you just haven't caught on to the hype train for DK Metcalf yet, you need to get on it. That dude's a stud. He's going to be an elite wide receiver in this league, and I think he might be becoming that this year. It's going to be overall a positive matchup for the wide receivers. Greg Olson's a tight end, but he doesn't get utilized at all, so I'm not really too worried about his matchup at all against those linebackers. Then we have Darian Thompson, Xavier Woods are the 2 safeties for Dallas. Overall, it's going to be a positive match for Russell Wilson. I think not as much as people expect, but the game total is 55.5. It's 55.5. You don't get game totals that high often. These 2 teams are going to be 2 of the, if not the 2 highest scoring teams this year in the entire league. Dallas Cowboys will be in shootouts every single week. That's a team you're just going to want to play players against all year. And now you get another team that already scores a ton of offense. Man, Russell Wilson's expensive, but I just want to stack him, bro. I want to stack him in DK Metcalf. I want to stack him in Tyler Lockett. That's pretty much it. Just that's your simple stack. David Moore, you just probably aren't going to need that. So Russell Wilson stacks, man. In tournaments, yeah, go for it. Definitely not playing Russell Wilson in cash. Way too expensive. If you want to attack this game in cash, we'll talk about the other quarterback later. But Russell Wilson is definitely someone who's on the radar here. Someone who I definitely love in tournaments. I just love this game. 55.5 total is ridiculous. There's another game that's 54 if you see it right there. And there's one more. Usually on a normal week, 54.5 is the highest total. 55, that's ridiculous. So definitely a game I want to go after. Russell Wilson, definitely someone I want in tournaments. Up next, we got Matt Ryan for the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Chicago Bears. $6,600. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchup, it's going to come out slightly negative for Matt Ryan. He has Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage as his wide receivers. Very, very good wide receiving core going up against Kyle Fuller, rookie Jalen Johnson, and Buster Screen. It's going to be a very positive matchup for these receivers. And these corners aren't terrible for Chicago, but it's Julio and Ridley. These 2 are just elite, man. They're 2 of the best receivers in the league. Julio did get hurt in that game, so we'll see if he plays. I'm assuming he plays. I'd be kind of shocked if he didn't, but Matt Ryan, it's still Ridley. It's still going to be a positive matchup overall. Hayden Hurst going against Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. Grades out as a positive matchup. Then you have Tayshaun Gibson Sr. and Eddie Jackson at artist safeties. Overall, very positive matchup for Matt Ryan. This is a game where they're at home and they're favored, and there is a 47.5 game total. I don't know how much I really want to go to Matt Ryan this week, just because this Chicago Bears team, the matchup's really good, but the Chicago Bears are a very, very slow-paced team. We've seen them. They're not going to allow that many points a game. I mean, they allowed barely any to Detroit, allowed barely any to the Giants, and, those are two pretty good offenses. I mean, Giants maybe not, but Detroit is. So, I'm sure, Atlanta will put up more than them, but, it's just not the spot where I think I really want to target Matt Ryan as much. Definitely someone maybe to go for in GPPs, but in cash, not going to go there at all. So Matt Ryan's fine, but probably not one of my favorite targets of the day. Up next, we have Mitchell Trubisky for the Chicago Bears, $5,700 going against the Atlanta Falcons. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchup for him, it is going to come out pretty negative. The Chicago offensive line sucks. It's not good. And honestly, the Atlanta defense line isn't as bad as people want to give it credit for. Grady Jarrett's elite. Takk McKinley is pretty solid. So they have some good players on that defensive line. Dante Fowler. So negative matchup there. Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, and Anthony Miller in the slot are the wide receivers, going against rookie A.J. Terrell, Isaiah Oliver, and Darqueze Dennard, who cannot stop anybody. It's a positive matchup for those receivers. They've just gotten torched 2 weeks in a row. DK Metcalf lit them up week 1. Last week it was Amari and CeeDee Lamb. Both of them had really good games. So, this is just a spot where these receivers look really, really good. Jimmy Graham is a tight end. Really not utilized too much, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Then we have Keanu O'Neal and Ricardo Allen are our safeties. It's going to be a positive matchup there. Overall, it's barely negative. I think overall, I want to call this matchup even. It's a good matchup for Trubisky. 47.5 game total. They're on the road, though, not favored. The not favored part's good. I mean, we like quarterbacks when they're playing from behind, but how much do we really trust Trubisky playing from behind? I know he came from behind in Detroit week 1, but I just still don't trust him that much. I mean, he's still Mitch Trubisky. If you want to go there in cash, he's fine. If you want to go there in tournaments for a stack, I mean, he's okay. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on that, but I'd rather just get, pieces of this game, like a Robinson or Anthony Miller, than just go into a full-out Trubisky stack. So, I think he's okay if you want to get there, but still not someone I'm totally on. Up next, we have Matthew Stafford going up against the Arizona Cardinals, and this is another one of those. This is the other game where it's just ridiculous. 54.5 game total. This is just a spot where I absolutely love getting to. We have Taylor Decker is okay. I don't even want to talk about the offensive lineman players, but offensive line versus defensive line match is going to be positive for Detroit. You have Kenny Golladay is back this week for Detroit. That's huge for them. They need him back. I don't know if he's going to be at full strength or not. I'll be listening to beat reporters all week to see what's going on with him. But if he's at full strength, he's great, and he's only 6,200 on Draftkings. Just saying. But Marvin Jones Jr., this could be the Marvin Jones week when Galladay's back and no one's on Marvin Jones, and he just freaking goes off. So, those receivers for Detroit, very, very good matchup against Patrick Peterson, Drake Kirkpatrick, and Byron Murphy. Very positive matchup. I think it might be the second most positive matchup for the receivers this week. You have second most positive matchup. T.J. Hawkinson is a tight end going against Devondre Campbell, Jordan Hicks, and Isaiah Simmons, a rookie. Overall, that's a positive matchup for him. Then you have Chris Banjo and Budda Baker are the two safeties. Overall, one of the best matchups on the slate is Matthew Stafford against the Arizona Cardinals. It's a 54.5 game total. I mean, another just ridiculously high-scoring game. These two are like the two late games on the weekend too, so that's gonna be a fun late week hammer here. They are gonna be playing on the road. They are. I don't think that really matters as much. They're going to be playing from behind, though, I think. This is a game where I just love going to Stafford. I think the matchup's very, very good. The total's very, very good. It's going to be a fast game pace because we know how fast Arizona plays. Definitely Matthew Stafford, someone I have in target for both cash and GBPs. I want him in both. My initial cash line I made this morning, which was the first one I made all week, had Stafford in it. So, I'm not saying that's like the go-to cash quarterback this week, but that's who my first cash lineup that I made had in it. So, Stafford, definitely someone viable for everywhere. I want to stack him with Golladay. I want to stack with Marvin Jones this week. I'm telling you, bro, Marvin Jones has these weeks where he just will light up for 3 or 4 touchdowns, and it's not the weeks people expect. Everyone's going to be looking, Galladay's back. Jones isn't that good. Well, let's look at Marvin Jones a little bit more this week. Great matchup, high total game. So, Stafford definitely someone I want to go after this week. Kirk Cousins, I'm just not. I don't ever play Kirk Cousins. and I just still don't want to play Kirk Cousins. If he's 5,500, goes up against the Titans. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line, matchups negative. They have Adam Thielen, Olabisi Johnson, and Justin Jefferson against Malcolm Butler, Jonathan Joseph, and Chris Jackson. Matchup's going to be positive, but that's just because Adam Thielen's there, and Adoree Jackson could still come back this week. So if he's back, that's going to make the matchup even tougher for Kirk Cousins. Kyle Rudolph's a tight end, but he's really not utilized at all, so I'm not really too worried about the tight end matchup here. And then Kenny Vaccaro and Kevin Byard are two safeties. Byard, one of the better safeties in the NFL. It's still going to be a positive matchup for Kirk Cousins, but they're on the road. They're not favored. Titans defense is pretty solid. And it's just, these two teams just play so slow. I just don't see how Cousins really has a huge ceiling here. So probably not someone I really want to get to too much. I don't trust him. I just don't. I mean, we've seen these first 2 weeks how awful he's been, and I just don't trust him at all. I also don't really trust his weapons outside of Thielen and Cook, but Cook, is a running back, so doesn't really that much affect Kirk Cousins' points. But Thielen, he's been inconsistent to start the year, and he's kind of always been that. He's outside that 1 year where he was 10 straight games, 10 catches or whatever it was, or it was 100 yards. It was outside of that, he's just not really been the most consistent receiver in the world. So Kirk Cousins, I don't want to get there. Daniel Jones going against San Francisco. Look, all right, before I get into this, the 49ers defense isn't good anymore. They're down Bosa, Sherman, Solomon Thomas. We'll see if D Ford plays this week. They're hurt. They're hurting bad. But the Giants suck. Their defense is, the Giants' offensive, everything sucks. So I still don't want to get to Daniel Jones 5,500. Other weeks, yeah, quarterbacks, I'm going to attack the 49ers this year, I think. And I'm fine with it. But this week, no. When we go get the offense versus defensive line matchup, it's somehow slightly positive because all those guys are hurt. Imagine if Bosa and Thomas were there. F. Darius Slayton, Ratley, and Golden Tate at receiver. Shepard got hurt last week. We'll wait and see if he plays. They'll be lining up against Emmanuel Mosley, Akel Witherspoon, and Kawan Williams in the slot. It's going to be a slightly negative matchup, but that's really more even, honestly, than anything for Daniel Jones' receivers. And you got Evan Ingram going up against, this is a week where I think people are going to be like, oh, we can play Evan Ingram. The 49ers defense isn't good anymore. Yeah, but they are still really good at the linebacker spot. Drake Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and Quan Alexander, that's probably the best linebacking group in the entire league. And they're still healthy. Those guys are actually there. So Evan Ingram's going to draw awful matchup. And then if they put Kawan Williams on him, who's one of, if not the best slot corner in the league, I don't want Evan Ingram this week at all. People are going to be like, this defense isn't as good as it was. You should still attack Evan Ingram. Now, I don't want that. That matchup, that's the one spot where I think the 49ers are going to be still elite at guarding, is that because those linebackers are just, they're so good. Drake Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Quan Alexander, all elite linebackers. Maybe not Quan Alexander anymore, but those two for sure. Then you have Jaquiski Tart and Jimmy Ward are two good safeties. Overall, it's a negative matchup. And this is the lowest total game on Slate. 40.5 game total is ridiculously low for the NFL. I don't want that. I don't think I really want any piece of this game. We'll talk about the Niners in a minute, but I just don't really have much interest in Daniel Jones at all here. Ben Roethlisberger going up against the Houston Texans, $6,400. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchup, it's going to be a positive matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even down 2 starters, it's still positive. That's how bad Houston's defensive line outside J.J. Watt is. The wide receivers, Deontay Johnson's been getting peppered with targets. James Washington and Juju going against Bradley Roby, Lonnie Johnson, and Vernon Graves. Those guys suck. Positive matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers receivers. Actually, this is the best receiver matchup overall against these trash Houston Texans corners. Then you have Zach Cunningham and Bernardrick McKinney are the two linebackers going against Eric Ebron. That's going to be a positive matchup for Ebron too. Then Eric Murray and Justin Reed are the two safeties. You look at overall, this is one of the best matchups on the slate for Ben Roethlisberger. This game where they're home, they're favored, but this defense sucks. It's 45 game total, not the best, but still not terrible. So yeah, I don't hate going there at all. I think he's definitely someone I want to get to in some stacks and GBPs and some. I think he's a cash viable quarterback. Sorry, let's stop here. I had to get some water. Needed that bad. Finished talking about Ben Roethlisberger. Carson Wentz, $5,800. They're playing him against. Hey, Carson Wentz is cheap now. He's been terrible this year. Philadelphia looks so bad. they're in trouble, man. That team does not look good. If they don't beat Cincinnati this week, okay. Anyway, $1,500 Carson Wentz. Offense versus defensive line looks positive for them. I mean, they still have a very good offensive line. Like, that was my excuse week 1, was their offensive line was hurt. Well, they're healthy now, and they still look terrible. So, Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, and Greg Ward are the 3 wide receivers going against William Jackson, Darius Phillips, and Mackenzie Alexander. That's going to be a positive matchup for those receivers. When we go look at Zach Ertz going against Jermaine Pratt, and Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Like, there's only one room for the tight ends here, but those 2 are very involved in the offense. Going against Jermaine Pratt and Josh Bynes. That's going to be a positive matchup. And you have Von Mill and Jesse Bates III as the 2 safeties. Overall, Wentz is one of the best matchups on the slate. Cincinnati's defense sucks. We've seen it 2 weeks in a row. Their defense sucks. It's bad. 46 game total. They're at home. They're favored. I mean, Wentz should have a solid day, but I just don't think Wentz ever really is capable of putting up that massive ceiling game that we're looking for in a tournament. So I don't really want to go there. And Cashy's fine just because the match is really good. But in tournaments, I don't want to go there at all. He's not someone I'm looking for at all this week. So, I mean, I think he's fine in cash, though, for sure. But in tournaments, probably going to look other ways. I mean, do I even have to talk about Dwayne Haskins anymore? Like, he's not good. Like, he's just not a good quarterback. Cleveland's got a good... I don't even want to talk about how bad this is. It's terrible matchups everywhere for the Redskins. The football team. Overall, it's going to be, like, barely a positive matchup somehow. Probably because of the linebacker versus tight end spot, because those tight ends or those linebackers suck in Cleveland. 43.5 game total. They're on the road. I mean, I know they aren't favored, but that's a low total to really want to play a quarterback who's going to be playing from behind. Like, when you're trying to find the quarterbacks that are going to be playing from behind that you want to play, you want to find the guys in a high total. So Detroit, Stafford's not favored. Yeah, obviously that one, and then Dak Prescott, who's on the road but not favored. But also, someone like Derek Carr. Maybe not this week because he's going up against New England, but someone like Mitch Trubisky, he's fine. Tannehill. Like, there's guys that are in these solid like game flows that are, I mean, even Carson Wentz or Joe Burrow, I guess we're going to talk about next. These are the guys you look for. You don't look like for the guys in a 43.5 game total to go for. Cleveland's defense is actually pretty solid. Their linebackers suck, but their defensive line's very good, and their secondary. Oh man, if they were healthy, they'd be really good. But Denzel Ward's very good, and he's going to be on Terry McLaurin for most of the games, so that's not somewhere I want to go to. So Dwayne Haskins, I just don't want to play him. Yeah, I can get pieces of this game. If you want to get some Antonio Gibson as a running back, or Terry McLaurin, or even Steven Sims, or Logan Thomas, that's fine. But Dwayne Haskins, no. Phillip Rivers, another quarterback, I just don't ever want to roster, man. I mean, he just doesn't ever have a ceiling. He's $6,000 this week. Like, I know the Minnesota Vikings defense sucks, but I don't know, man. We go look at the offensive versus defensive line. It's going to be a very, very positive matchup for the Colts for Phillip Rivers. Then you got T.Y. Hilton, rookie Michael Pittman, and then Zach Pascal's in for Karis Campbell, who is on the IR now. That was unfortunate. Going against Bleswan Austin, Quincy Miller. No, that's wrong. They're playing the Jets. I said they're playing the Vikings. They're playing the Jets. They played the Vikings last week. Anyway, going against Bleswan Austin, Quincy Miller, and Brian Poole for the Jets. They're both 2 terrible teams. That's a slightly negative matchup, actually, for those receivers, which is crazy. But, yeah, I mean, the Colts receivers really aren't that good. Pascal's not good. T.Y. Hilton, he hasn't been good in a few years. That might be kind of a hot take, but he's really not that good anymore. Mo Alley Cox is tight end. If Doyle's out again. Mo Alley Cox did pretty good last week. He was PFF's highest graded offensive player last week. So, I mean, it's not just from receiving, but he was very efficient on his receptions, caught touchdowns, and he's still cheap. So, I mean, that's someone to definitely look for as a tight end, but not, with the stack of Phillip Rivers. He goes against Neville Hewitt, and I cannot believe Alec Ogletree's back on the team. That's a positive matchup. Bradley McDougald and Marcus Mayer are the 2 safeties. So, overall, it's going to be a very, very positive matchup. Or not very, very positive matchup, but a positive matchup for him. He's at home. He's favored. This is a team that's going to like to run the ball. I just don't think Phillip Rivers ever really has a ceiling that anywhere I want to go to. I don't want him anywhere. If you want to play him in cash, he's fine, but I think there's better cash plays. In tournaments, definitely don't want him. I just want the running game. I want Jonathan Taylor. So, not something I really want to get to. Derek Carr, $5,400 for the Las Vegas Raiders going against the New England Patriots is actually cheap enough that I'm kind of interested in. He has an offensive versus defensive line matchup. that is going to be is going to be positive. I mean, the Raiders' offensive line is actually one of the best in the league. Like you would be surprised by that, by the Raiders being having one of the better offensive lines, but they do. Now, if you watch the New Orleans game, it didn't look like it for a lot of it, but Trent Brown got ruled out for the game. I think he should be back this week, and then Richie Incognito got hurt, so that was two of their better offensive linemen down pretty early. Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs, the two rookies, and Hunter Renfrow were the receivers going up against Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones. I don't want any of those receivers at all, man. That's just brutal matchups for rookies. Like those two, Gilmore and Jackson, elite. I don't want to play rookies against those guys. I mean, Gilmore's looked not as great the first 2 weeks. He got torched last week, bad by DK Metcalf, but I mean, this is Brian Edwards or Henry Ruggs, whichever one he lines up against. That's a much different matchup than DK Metcalf. Darren Waller's the tight end, going up against Jawan Bentley, Brandon Copeland, and Anfernee Jennings. Darren Waller's the number one receiver on his team. Like, I mean, if you were watching Monday Night Football, Collinsworth said that. I think it was Collinsworth. No, he doesn't do Monday Night Football. Anyway, whoever was talking said that the Raiders have two star players, Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. That's their offense. So, yeah, Darren Waller had like 10, 11 targets the last game, I think a touchdown. So, he's very involved in this offense, going to be one of the best tight ends in the league this year. So, I mean, he's someone definitely, if you're stacking Derek Carr, that's the only way I want to go with. And it's risky to stack Derek Carr because, I mean, it's against the Patriots, but it does end up being a good matchup. Like, the Raiders' offense, I'm telling you, is not that bad. It's overall a positive matchup. They're on the road, that's a problem. In New England, that's a problem. But they're going to be playing from behind, and I don't even hate it. I don't think this New England defense is as good as it's been. It's good, but it's not what it was last year. I mean, they still have the secondary, but the linebacking group's gone. Some of the pass rush is gone. So, I mean, Derek Carr, I think, is sneaky. He's a sneaky play. Probably still not going to – I still don't ever want to make Derek Carr stacks because I just don't think that's smart to make Derek Carr stacks. But if you want to play McCaffrey, he's fine. If you just want to – even if you just want to go a Carr Waller stack, I think it's relevant, but it's very, very risky. It's a tough spot, but I think he's a little underrated this week. Up next, we'll go to Teddy Bridgewater going up against the LA Chargers. $5,200 Teddy Bridgewater. Offense versus defensive line is going to be a negative matchup. I mean, the Chargers defense line is very good. I mean, Linville Joseph, Joey Bosa, they're just so good. That Melvin Ingram, that's the guy I was thinking of, really not Linville Joseph, but those two are just so good. Then you got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel in the receivers. There's no CMC this week for Carolina, so I think all these guys are going to get a little bit more usage now that he's gone. So Bridgewater going to those guys looks solid. Casey Hayward Jr., Michael Davis, Chris Harris Jr. are the corners, though. And Casey Hayward and Chris Harris Jr. are two of the better corners in the NFL. It's still a slightly positive matchup for the wide receivers for the Carolina Panthers. Ian Thomas doesn't get utilized at all, so I'm not really too worried about his matchup. And then Desmond King and Nasir Adderley are the two safeties. Overall, it's going to be a very, very slightly positive matchup for Carolina. They're on the road. They're playing from behind, which is good, but in a very low total game. Just probably not somewhere I really want to get a ton of spots on. If you want to play him in cash, I think he's okay, but probably still wouldn't really want to go there. But, I mean, I think he's just not someone I really want to get any attention on this week. Tyrod Taylor, we're going to flip the game, or Tyrod Taylor, we're going to flip the game. It should be Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert should be the guy I'm talking about right now. I can't believe that they still want to start Tyrod Taylor. Herbert played, I mean, he didn't play great, but he almost beat the Chiefs. He played fine. He played good enough. He had showed the potential, showed the flashes. Why not start him? Does not make any sense to me. 5,700 Tyrod Taylor. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I mean, honestly, whatever I say about these guys, it's the same. If Herbert ends up starting, it's the same thing. He's just $200 more than Taylor. So when we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchups, it's going to be a negative matchup for the Chargers offensive line. The offensive line in Chargers sucks. Like, that's such a weakness on their offense. The receivers are Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, and Keenan Allen, going against Dante Jackson, Rajul Douglas, and Justin Burris. Yeah, it's going to be a really positive matchup for those wide receivers. Mike Williams sucks. Like, he's bad. He's just not good. Hunter Henry's a tight end. I'm sorry, I said Mike Williams is bad. I meant Dante Jackson is bad. He's not good. He sucks. There you go. It's a great matchup for Mike Williams. Hunter Henry's a tight end going against Shaq Thompson, Tahir Whitehead. That's going to be a positive matchup for Hunter Henry. Jeremy Chin and Trey Boston are the two safeties. Overall, it's going to be a positive matchup for Tyrod Taylor. They're going to be favored at home. Tyrod Taylor just doesn't offer you a ton of upside. That offense plays very, very slow paced. Faster paced than last year, but still a slow pace. So, yeah, I mean, Tyrod Taylor, I don't really ever want to stack him in tournaments ever. I don't think he's sneaky. Some people are going to tell you he's sneaky this week. It's Carolina's defense sucks. It does, but I just don't think he has the upside to just absolutely go off. So I don't really want to get there. Joe Burrow, though, someone I definitely have some interest in this week at $6,200 going against Philadelphia. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line matchup, like it's pretty much even, I guess. Like, I mean, Philly's defense line, I think it's overrated as pass rush. As a run-stopping unit, it's good. I'll say that. Very, very good run-stopping unit. But as a pass rush, I don't think it's anything that special. So Burrow's not in the beautiful or super tough spot. You got A.J. Green, rookie T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd are the receivers going against Darius Slay, who's overrated. Stop worrying about that guy. Avonte Maddox and Nikhil Roby-Coleman in the slot, who's good. He's good. So Tyler Boyd draws a really tough matchup this week. But and then you got Drew Sample, who's replacing C.J. Uzomah in the tight end, had like 9 targets last week, so it seems like they want to get him involved in the offense. Going against Nathan Gary, Duke Riley, and T.J. Edwards. The safeties are Jalen Mills and Ronnie McLeod. And this is going to be a game where he's going to get a slightly positive match, nothing too positive, but they're on the road. They're going to be playing from behind, though. That's good. And in a 46 game total, like I said earlier, like you want to find the guys that are in the higher game totals that are going to be playing from behind. And I think Joe Burrow gives us that. I don't think that's that second. I don't think the matchup's that tough for him to deal with. I think this is a spot where he can succeed at, and definitely someone I want to get some exposure to. Tom Brady for Tampa playing against Denver this week. Probably not someone I'm going to get to as Brady himself, just because this game doesn't project to be super high scoring at all. $6,100. When we look at the offensive versus defensive line, it is going to be a positive matchup. I mean, the Broncos defensive line with Alvin Miller is just not that good. Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, and Chris Godwin's back this week, though. This is where I do want to attack Tampa, or use Tampa this week, is at the receivers. And you know what? We'll talk about them in the receiver video. I'll make you guys wait for that. I'm not going to go over how great the receiver plays are for Tampa this week. O.J. Howard is pretty much a tight end. It's not Gronk. Gronk didn't do anything. Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell are the 2 linebackers they'll be matching up against. Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson are the safeties. Overall, it's going to be a positive matchup for Tampa, but like they're on the road. They're favored. Denver's not good. They're going to be playing slow. Like, I just don't think Brady has the upside for a stack here. This is not the spot where I want to use him in a stack at all, so probably just not going to go there for GBPs. I mean, if you want to in cash, I think he's okay. Still wouldn't go there. I just think there's better options in cash. I think there's a lot of good cash viable quarterbacks this week, but there's just some that stand out above the others. Kyler Murray. Yes. Is that really all I have to say about him? $1,600 Kyler Murray. Offensive versus defensive line matchup. It's positive. Very good matchup here for even the Arizona offensive line. DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald. Poor Jeff Okudah, man. This guy's first 2 games of his career are going to be up against Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. That's brutal. And Davante Adams was torching him last week before he got hurt. I mean, gosh. Poor Jeff Okudah. I mean, I think he's going to be a really good corner, but man, that's a tough spot. The receivers versus cornerback matchup is going to be very, very positive for him. Dan Arnold is the tight end going against Jarrad Davis, Jelani Tavai, and Reggie Ragland. That's going to be a positive matchup. And then Will Harris and Jerron Harmon are safeties. Overall, this is a positive matchup. The Cardinals are home and they're favored. I don't care. I just don't care if they're favored. This game is 54.5 game total. There's going to be a ton of scoring. Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins stacks. Great. Kyler Murray to Christian Kirk stacks. Great. Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk stacks. Great. You know what's sneaky? Dan Arnold. Don't forget about that guy. Just saying, if you're making Kyler Murray stacks, include him in there. I think he's got some sneaky upside. Jimmy Garoppolo or Nick Mullins if Garoppolo plays. I already said I don't want to get any exposure to this game. I still don't. I mean, the matchup's really good against the Giants. Like, the Giants' defense sucks, but it's only a 40.5 game total. They're on the road and they're favored. I mean, even though Mostert's gone, like, they're still going to run the ball. Like, they don't have anyone to throw the ball to. I don't think Kittle's playing this week. I think it's still going to be Jordan Reed again. So, and I don't think Garoppolo's playing either. I think it's going to be Nick Mullins. So, I just don't want any of the spots of this game really anywhere outside of maybe, like, a Darius Slayton or something. But no one on the 49ers sticks out to me, especially their quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, $7,200. All right, so this is kind of cover, so we got to talk about the cover boy here a little bit. Yeah, this is the game, man. I'm excited to watch this game. And I'm a Giants fan, so go Seattle, but this is going to be a fun game to watch. And I'm a Giants fan, and I even enjoy watching Dallas come back against Atlanta last week. What a game that was. Dak Prescott, man. I mean, he's just, Dallas should have paid him. Like, he gets so much hate sometimes, but he's a really good quarterback. He's throwing the ball very, very good right now. I think he gets a little bit underappreciated sometimes. Anyway, offensive versus defensive line. The offensive line is injured for Dallas right now, so that's not good. Overall, still a positive matchup though, because the Seattle defensive line is trash. It's bad how bad the Seattle defensive pass rush is. They have a good secondary and obviously great linebackers, but their pass rushes were screwing them. If they had a good pass rush, they'd be one of, if not the best defense in the league, and I will stand by that. They'd be up there at Pittsburgh and Baltimore as one of the better defenses. So, it's just their pass rush screws them. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb are receivers, probably the best wide receiver group in the league. CeeDee Lamb's looked very, very good to start his career off. Going against Shaq Griffin, Quentin Dunbar, Uga Amadi in the slot. Overall, it's going to be a positive matchup for the receivers. You have Dalton Schultz at the tight end spot going against, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright. That's a tough one to draw. Still slightly positive, though. And then Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs are the two safeties. Overall, we have barely a positive matchup for Dak. Honestly, it's not as good as you'd want it to look, but this is a team that's just going to be playing shootouts. They're not favored. They're not favored, and it's a 55.5 point game total. What happened last week when they were behind in a super high-scoring game? Dak put up almost 40 Draftkings points. So I want to go back there again. If you can find a way to put him in a cash lineup, I don't hate it, but still probably not someone I want to get in cash. He's just expensive, man. But man, in tournaments, I just want this stack. I want this Dak to Amari Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lambs. Not all three of them probably, but one or two of those guys in every lineup. And honestly, you can stack with Zeke too. So, Dak Prescott, great play. Jared Goff, 5,600. Put the wrong team there. They play the Bills. Let's just type that in real quick. Forgot to type that in, but $5,600 against Buffalo. Offense versus defensive line. It's a tough one. The offensive line for the Rams isn't good. It's looked better to start this year, but they haven't really played anybody that's good at pass rush. So, the Rams have a tough spot there. Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Cooper Kupp got to go up against Tre'Davious White, Levi Wallace, and Teron Johnson. That isn't ideal. Tre'Davious White's elite. I wouldn't really, not too interested in Robert Woods this week, in all honesty. And then you got Tyler Higbee. Now, this is the one spot I do really like. Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds missed last week. And if they miss again, we saw Gesicki torch them. And I didn't, obviously that wasn't known in my tight end video last week, but I didn't make an injury video either because I couldn't. But in my Patreon, I wrote down that, Gesicki, without these two tight ends miss, Gesicki's in a great spot, and he smashed. Tyler Higbee, if it's Tyler Matakovich and Tyrell Dodson again, Tyler Higbee's in another smash spot. He's going to go off a second week in a row. Love him there. If not, if the stars are back, probably not as much. And then you have Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are the two safeties. They project out as... Overall, Goff projects out positively, but he's going to be playing from behind against Buffalo, and Buffalo's a team I just don't really want to play players from behind against. That defense is just really, really good. So, tough spot, but I think he's a fine option if you want to get different, and you can stack Jared Goff with Higbee or Woods or Kupp, and I don't hate it. So, but I think that's really all I got to say on this quarterback video. I hope you guys got a lot of good information from this. You're going to know who to play a quarterback this week, make some money this week. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notification bell, leave a comment. All that stuff really helps me grow. Thank you guys so much for checking this out, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.